In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways.
Hi guys, greetings. My name is Zyle, coming at you live from South Africa. We thought we needed to have a family meeting to unpack a bit of what's going on in the country. The panelists should be joining us in a little bit of a while, but I just thought that let me allow the audience to come into class and let us actually get the conversation started. Remember, if you want your comments to be on stage, you can do so from YouTube. When you're on YouTube, I can put your comments on screen. It's been a bit difficult time. We are having a polarizing discussion this evening. It's a very heated and difficult conversation. So obviously, we ask that people speak with respect and with compassion and wanting to learn about the other side. Because right now, nobody's winning and we're hating each other and we're calling each other names. And I think that it's important, in African culture, you know that the only way a situation is if there is conversation around it. It's not just in African culture, but in any culture, really, it's important. Okay, our guests are starting to come in. Let me just start. I'll add them one by one on stage. Voice of RSA, the voice of South Africa. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the panel tonight. Good evening, Unjani.
Good evening. I'm good, and you? Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you clearly. Even your visuals are beautiful, stunning. We're looking forward to the engagement. I was just saying to the audience that this is such a difficult topic, and we want to handle it with the utmost care and respect. Since I know that you are, actually, no, where's your stand? Let me not jump into your mouth.
My stance is anti xenophobia.
And why do you say that? I just want a few opening remarks and where you stand and how you feel about what's going on in the country.
How I feel about the country is that there are legitimate concerns about issues affecting working class people in this country. However, I do feel like immigrants are being scapegoated, and we are not addressing the real issue. And the solutions that have been chosen are not actually the most effective solutions for solving the issue at hand. So that's my position.
So I want to read a message that I got the other day, which prompted this conversation. And it's Ndate Obbey Mabena, who's going to join us in a little bit. And he says, what I find unconscionable about many of these self-righteous commentators and podcasters is their selective morality when discussing South Africa's migration challenges, both legal and illegal. They are quick to lecture South Africans, yet they conveniently avoid asking, let alone answering some uncomfortable but necessary questions. Why is it that citizens of countries that attain independence long before South Africa are unable to find sufficient opportunities in their own countries and are therefore compelled to seek employment in South Africa at almost any cost? Two, given that many of these countries are richly endowed with natural resources, what explains their failure to build economies capable of providing jobs and dignified livelihood for their own citizens? Three, is there not a direct relationship between the obscene wealth and extravagance enjoyed by many African leaders and the grinding poverty that drives millions of their people to leave their homelands in search of opportunities elsewhere? Should the conversation not also focus on the corruption, incompetence, and mismanagement that has hollowed out many African economies and forced ordinary citizens into economic exile? And finally, why should South Africa be expected to bear the consequences of leadership failures across the continent? Why is the burden placed on South Africa rather than on these governments whose policies and conduct have created the conditions and drive migration in the first place? The reality is that many refuse to confront. Okay, it's a bit long, and actually, here he is. So he is. Ndate Obi, I was busy reading the message that you sent to me.
Okay.
Yes. Good evening. How are you?
No, can't complain yourselves.
I'm very well, thank you.
Great
So
stuff.
I was reading the message that you sent, and maybe let's start there. Please, can you unpack to us what you were saying?
Which message was this, by the way?
The message where you were saying that why must South Africa bear the burden of African nationals when African nationals come from economically, minerally rich societies?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
The point I was trying to highlight here is that, you see, if you look at South Africa, we have traversed the same route that has been traversed by the rest of the continent, namely that post colonialism, we had now leadership coming from amongst ourselves. But unfortunately, you find that this leadership, most of them prove to be more self-serving than anything else. Because if you look at the potential that Africa has in terms of natural resources, the last thing we should be talking about in Africa is poverty. But thanks to the fact that we don't have, how can I put it? It's not even a case of capability on the part of our leaders, but it's a case of our leaders, being there for looting the wealth of our country. And to achieve that, they need to make sure that they get the worst of our society to serve in their governments, who will be just happy to have been given the opportunity to earn something, even if it's not really much what they earn, because that's how they are treated. Our people are treated. So we are running on this merry-go-round of us believing that no, Africa will change. There was the Organization of African Unity, and the African Organization of African Unity was transformed into the AU, African Unity. But it is anything but that. Hence, we are sitting now with a problem of, for example, the so-called xenophobia here in South Africa. But in Ghana, some years ago, Nigerians were beaten for coming to take Ghanaian jobs and business opportunities. They were beaten up and they had to leave. In Ethiopia, there was a similar situation. So I think even Kenya at one time also had a similar. But you see, the tragedy about this is the fact that whilst we are fighting people who are running from similar problems that we are faced with in our country, in their own countries, then we don't have time to focus on the caliber of people who have given responsibility to run our countries. Because now we're busy, we think that we are in the situation that we find ourselves because of these people who come from their countries and come and take jobs from us.
A voice of South Africa. I know that you feel a little bit differently about this. I think this is a good time to ask you to jump in. Remember to unmute
Sorry
and
about
then
that.
repeat. Yes, and then can I ask
Yes.
Phaphano, please turn on your video because it just doesn't look professional when we just have a black screen. So Voice of South Africa, yes.
I wanted to address something you said earlier about why should South Africa have to bear the burden of all these failed countries? Well, I would like to just remind people that majority of immigrants in this country do not come from far. Most of them are from the SADC region, so they're from countries like Lesotho, Zimbabwe, our neighboring countries. That's where the most of these immigrants are coming from. And if you ask yourself, why are these people even here? Yes, it's because the country's economies are not doing well. But it's like nothing happens in isolation. So you need to look back into the history of how we arrived at this outcome. And a lot of our neighboring countries were frontline states during apartheid, and they helped us to end the apartheid regime. And that cost them a lot of money. I know this is not really taught much in our schools, because I don't remember going through this in history class when I was in high school. However, the if you quantify the monetary value that they lost due to their assistance due to them assisting South Africa, they lost a significant amount of money in terms of infrastructure damage, and
Excuse me,
that was money that was never repaid to
excuse me.
those
Can I come
governments.
in here because I think we're
Let me
going
finish
completely
quickly.
off track here.
Wait, let me quickly finish.
Ndate
That
Obi, can
money,
we let him finish? Can I just ask all the speakers? It's a heated conversation, but whoever's
yes.
got the mic, please, can we allow them to speak and finish their point? I definitely will allow everyone to engage and fight each other.
Because I'd
It's
like to
fine.
respond to what he's
Yes.
saying
So
with
Yes,
from
you
his
after the
you
recent
infra-
presentation.
after the
Kahafetsa
infrastructure
Vuma.
was damaged, after the
Yes.
infrastructure was damaged, none of these countries came to South Africa saying, hey, please come fix all of this damage that was caused by the previous regime. We just they just tolerated it and wrote it off as a loss because they were helping us to end apartheid. So then after that, they had to go out and take out loans, all these international and predatory loans in order to fix their infrastructure, which ended up driving some of these economies into debt traps. And that's how things what um blow up, and then you end up in a country that is a failed state because um instead of their taxpayer money being used to uplift their own citizens and to build schools for their citizens and to build hospitals for their citizens, that money went to paying off damage that they sustained uh, by involving themselves in a foreign conflict that they didn't even need to get involved in. So all these people who are kicking out people from their from hospitals and schools, those guys wouldn't need to use our hospitals and schools had we just repaid our frontline states the reparations that they deserve. And yeah, I would like to end there and let our good sir interject.
Hey, and Ndate Obi, you can jump in, and then we'll have King Zyle, and then Abu Tau Tau. We welcome the new members, Dr. Gagash, welcome. Ndate Obi, over to you. Oh, please unmute your mic, Ndate Obi.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. And my apologies for butting in the way I'm doing. But this happens to be a very, very serious issue that we're talking about. And we are where we are to a very large extent because of people who are talking about things that they are not very well informed on. Because you see, it becomes difficult for me to sit and listen to such people, whereas I spent 16 years of my life, you know, going through hardships in some of these countries that are supposed now to be coming to South Africa because they helped us. And one other the first misrepresentation here is the fact that the people who are coming to South Africa are largely from the SADC area. Nothing could be further than that from the truth. Because the truth of the matter is that we've got Nigerians, we've got Ethiopians, we've got Somalians, we've got, I don't want to talk about Tanzanians, Angolans, and Zambians, because these are the people now who can claim to have contributed and they've suffered, for our liberation. But all these other people who are here are economic migrants They are not coming here because of problems in their countries or because we owe them something for having supported us. I mean, countries like Nigeria, our students were kicked out of Nigeria. Nobody is talking about that. But these are things that we experience in our exile. And in some of these countries, I mean, Botswana helped us. It's a frontline country. It's a frontline state. Botswana helped us. But Botswana took us out of the city Gaborone and took us to a place called Dukwe so that we should not have the kind of freedom that these people are having here. And this is what they are demanding of us. Swaziland, the Boers used to collect us from the border of Swaziland. And by that, I'm not saying Swaziland did not support us. Swaziland supported us, but amongst the Swazis, there were people who were working for the bloody Boers, and that's a fact. And you know, what really gets me up a mountain, it's when all these things are being treated as if they never happened. So, good people, I'm not against anybody. I'm an African, and I believe in Pan-Africanism. And I believe that at some point we need to come together. But can we build our coming together and the reconstruction of our continent on the basis of truth? Whether that truth is bitter, we have to deal with that. We need to confront our demons, because half the leaders, if not more than half of the leaders of Africa, have got no right to be leaders in the first place. But last but not least, from where I am sitting, no liberation movement was supposed to have run any country, because there is no country that was taken over by a liberation movement that has prospered. And there are reasons for that. So liberation movement was a recipe for disaster, even here in South Africa. The problems that we're facing today are a result of us having allowed the liberation movement to come in purely on the basis that they were in exile, even when the people of South Africa don't even know what they were doing in exile. It's not all of us who were in exile who were fighting the Boers. So these are some of the issues. So really, if we want to do business to our situation, can we please stick to the truth?
Thank you very much, Ndato. You know, usually the people's names actually appear on screen. I don't know what's happening with this app tonight. Sorry about that to the guests. King Zyle, good evening, and thank you for joining just in time. Your thoughts, please do jump in.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you guys hear me nicely. Do you hear me nicely?
We can hear
Loud
you
and clear,
nicely.
sir.
Thank you.
I hear everything because I got the conversation. It was already on the ground, but I hear everything you guys are saying. And my main goal to come onto this live or onto this stream is for us to find a way forward. I like what Ntate is saying, that we should not have allowed the liberation movement to get into power, right? So when he says that we need to address the truth, my point is I did not really hear what he says when he's what truth is he talking about? What truth is he referring to? Because I believe that when we have a debate like this, we need to know why are people supporting the chasing of the so-called illegal immigrants, because the people who started these marches, if we want to be honest, most of them, the leaders, they've been saying they do not care if someone is legal or illegal. They do not care if you're documented or undocumented. I even saw a video yesterday of one Nigerian guy who was in KwaZulu-Natal, who owns a business, who has the proper documents, who has been running a business for 13 years here in this country. He has employed South African youth here in this country. He pays tax, he does all those things. But the people who are doing these matches were telling him that they do not care about the people that he employs, which are South African youth. And we all know that our youth, they don't have jobs. You know our unemployment rate, how high it is. So, but when we see things like that being marketed out into the world, what does that say about us as citizens or as Africans. So I want to know the truth that Ntate was talking about, that we need to accept the truth. What truth are we talking about? Because before 1884, Africa was one. There were no borders. It is the Berlin Conference that got us here, that made borders. Who made the borders? Who made us fight each other today? And we look at each other that know whether you're from Tanzania, whether you're from Mozambique. Who made all that? Why are we following something that was not created by us, that makes us kill each other today? So we need to address, I want to know the truth that Ntate is talking about, and then we'll go further.
All right, and Tate, please make note of those points. Ras Thau Thau, good evening, and thank you so much for joining. What are your thoughts as this very heated conversation has already begun?
Good evening, Mamia, and Voice of South Africa, RSA, Ndate Obbey, King Zyle, Os Phaphano, and Dr. Gagash. Good evening, everyone, for being part of this great debate. You know, it is quite, as I always say, this is very complex, and usually complex issues don't require simple solutions. And the tendency that we seems to find ourselves getting into is to try to simplify the complexities of these issues. There are laws, and these laws, one of the first continental superstructure of Pan-Africanism, the Organization of African Unity. The OAU was founded in 1963, 28th May, and then in 1964, July, they met in Cairo. At the Cairo conference, they agreed, the great Pan-Africanist of this continent, Emperor Haile Selassie, Kwame Nkrumah, Sékou Touré, Julius Nyerere, they all agreed that they are going to maintain colonial borders, they are going to maintain their territorial integrities, their own sovereignties, and so forth. Although OAU and African Union, its predecessor, have immigration rules that they put in place. Now, immigration is governed by laws and rules and constitution in every country, and which is where we need to separate between idealism. You know, Pan-Africanism, this year it will be 126 years old, ever since the first Pan-African conference of 1900 in Manchester. So there are a lot of idealism that are expressed in the name of Pan-Africanism, like borderless Africa, like there is no foreigner in Africa. But these things, they don't take into account criminality. They don't take into account that we're living in a most complex continent where you have your Boko Haram, your Al-Shabaab, your criminals. You see, I'm sitting here almost half in the dark, which is one of the things I wanted to address, that I might leave because my cables, where I stay, I'm a military veteran, where I stay in a community that is made up of 80% of illegal immigrants from across the Limpopo, particularly Zimbabwe. And in that community, they steal cables. So I'm one of the victims that they stole my cables. So I don't have electricity, so I have to put up some lights and all of that. That is why my lights are not so bright. So we don't filter in criminality. We don't filter in all these type of things, because there is no country in Africa that doesn't allow an influx. As we're speaking, Nigeria is now busy deporting Togolese, Burkina Faso, Burkina Faso, and some of the Africans in West Africa, because they are enforcing their law. So we need to separate territorial law, national security, from our idealism that ideally we love to have a free continent where you have a free movement. But this free movement must also filter in that it's not only good people who are moving in and out, is largely criminal. It also will involve criminal elements, drug traffickers, human traffickers. Now, our borders are porous. Our immigration system is completely corrupt. Yes, it is true what that Obbey saying, that the liberation movements in Africa should not have taken power. We see it in South Africa, we see it in Mozambique, we see it in Zimbabwe, which is the reason why we're having all of this influx. That is a one-way influx. Now, it becomes problematic when we start to talk about how borders are colonial only in reference to South African borders, because all borders in Africa are colonial, but it's only South African borders which seems to be the one that are defined to be colonial. Again, we are told of borderless Africa, but what we are getting here is a borderless South Africa, because no other country is preparing to remove its borders. Traore, our biggest Pan-Africanist, the favorite son of Africa, he's busy battling with jihadist insurgents because of also the borders around his country. And Traore is not fighting for the whole continent, he's fighting to safeguard his country as much as they are busy building the Sahel alliance. So as Dr. Obbey said, I was in exile too. We passed through Jukwe. I lived in 3 countries. I lived in Botswana, and then I went and stayed in Zimbabwe for 3 months. We were confined into those safe houses. I stayed with Sabelo Pama, and today we call him General Mufokeng. And then we went to Tanzania. We had a civilian camp called Ruvu, and then we had a military camp, which we call Mutupe Military College, which was in Bagamoyo, whereby you even had weekend passes. You are given a particular time to leave and to come back, and failure to do that, you will be penalized. So now here we're talking about a situation without rules when it comes to South Africa, without laws, without that. That is where the problem is, because what we need to do, what Pan-Africanism it should be about what we do in South Africa, we should be able to do in every African country. If you're going to have a borderless Africa, it should not be borderless South Africa, it should be in all countries. If we're going to have a free movement of people and goods, it should be all over. If we're going to have free visas, they should also be all over. But having a people who are coming in, you don't know where they are staying, we don't know their addresses, and their crimes that are reported. On a serious note, on a daily basis, there is a special program dedicated to Nigerian drug dealers called Sozokton. Every Sunday, and you ask yourself, what does the Nigerian embassy in Pretoria saying when they see their citizen every Sunday without failure being arrested for drugs, busted for drugs? They don't issue any statement, and then they hear that one Nigerian was stopped and they ask his documents, and all of a sudden it's a crisis. So I'm glad that the president yesterday, when he was addressing on the sideline of the June 16 thing, he made a statement that South Africans are not xenophobic, their issues are real, and we are attending to that. And I wish we can look at it that way, because calling South Africans xenophobic, Afrophobic, vigilantes is not going to solve the problem, but it is what you get in the society of the have little, and they have not. And usually they have little like to talk down on the have not, because they have little is what we call the middle class, who are caught up in the middle between revolution and no revolution, between the people and what they aspire to be, which is to be the have. So if we can have an honest diagnosis of the situation and therefore come up with the most workable solution, that is it okay that this borderless Africa talk about is that some people have syndicates of these women with children, they put them in robots, in traffic lights in South Africa to beg for money, and they come back and collect them in the evening and they charge them some fee. So you have all type of criminality. So our country need to enforce laws, immigration laws, all type of laws. And then at the same time, when you say Africans, they must go back to their countries to fix their countries, it is not being xenophobic, is the most Pan-African thing to do, because you are saying to them that, as you have learned from South Africans, South Africa is a protest capital of the world. Every day South Africans are in the street protesting. So you have learned that there is a country that try to hold its government accountable. So go back and hold your governments accountable, because you are taxpayers, you are citizens, you are voters. There is no way you can have a government that have you running all over the world and being refugees and being treated in an indignified manner. I'm going to stop here so that I allow other members.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all your contributions, guys. Ms. Phaphano Phasha, welcome and thank you. Are you ready to jump in, please?
I'm going to try my best. Thank you so much, Nsiki, and your panelists. Oh, should I jump in? All right. No, thank you. Let me just start by saying that I think generally there's a paralysis of ideas. But over and above that, I think when we listen to many of the commentators who have occupied the public space and assume that they're speaking for all South Africans, I would like to start by saying that the fight for political freedom and economic freedom was not about us being like our forebearers, because this assumption that people are taking our jobs, that's an apartheid Bantustan analysis that seeks to suggest that our fight for freedom was primarily for bread and crumbs. I think it's an indictment that we will be sitting or having conversations with our elders, in particular Black South African men, who can proudly say that we've got immigrants who are taking jobs. Because the question is, the question then becomes, whose jobs are those? Are you creating those jobs that you claim are yours? Because the reality is that as Black people, we are still landless. We do not own the economy. We do not own the commanding heights of the economy. Yet we are busy chasing Africans who are as poor as ourselves, instead of going back to the battle cry, which is economic freedom, not even in our lifetime, but economic freedom now. Now here we are being reduced to talking about being domestic workers, waitresses, and so forth in the land of our forefathers. You know, when I engaged Thau Thau, who's my brother, and the person that I've been with for a very long time in the struggle for economic freedom, I get shocked when he reduces his analysis to this microeconomics, where he talks about African migrants. In fact, he seems to say that every problem in our country, he's reducing it to the poorest of the poor who are coming here, of course, because of challenges in their own countries. I can tell you now, Thau Thau, that South African women, for example, are suffering in the hands of Black South African men. Black South African men themselves are suffering from the hands of Black South African men. 11 to 15 women in South Africa are killed every day. They are raped, they are mutilated, children as well. And the drugs that you speak about, it is not only our African brothers and sisters who are selling the drugs, who are drug dealers. Many of us who are in the research space, who have been in the political space, policy space, but now in commerce, we understand that in the main, the drugs that come into the country, they come through the ports. So it becomes also, I think, very reductive and ahistorical in many instances to reduce every problem in this country to our African brothers and sisters. Of course, there are problems in the country. Of course, when they come to the country, they contest for economic opportunities with our people. But the reality is that if you look at the economy of South Africa, you can even go back to 1863 when diamonds were discovered. The people who own capital in this country have never ever wanted to employ the Black majority. That's why to this day we talk about unemployment and unemployability, which runs at around 40% and 50%. If you go back pre-1994, the majority of people who have been employed in this country as workers, it has always been African migrants. Post-1994, it is the same thing. Those who own the commanding heights of the economy continue to hire African migrants. This tells you that white people in the main have never wanted to hire Black people. Now, instead of correcting this injustice, instead of us having an economic codessa, if we might call it like that, to fix the economic affairs of our country so that we move from being domestic workers, we move from being waitresses and so forth to owning the economy. We're not having that discussion to the extent that some of us even believe that there is a third force. Because as a people, myself and Thau Thau, if 3 years ago we were talking about white monopoly capital, and today we are reducing every problem to mere migrants, you know, who are in degradation, poverty, and squalor, then it means that we are, you know, the conversation is being reductive. We are moving back. We must be able to ask, why are we not taking our conversation to Roberts of this world, to the Ruperts of this world, to the Oppenheimers of this world? Why have we then started having this conversation? Because I can tell you, an agenda is always captured. The narrative is always set by some people. And it cannot be that today we are having this conversation in every given space, whether it's the media, it's in social media, where as Black people, as Africans, we are attacking each other and we are not really confronting capital. I mean, I came late and I'm about to end. One of the speakers said that he was in exile. When he was in exile, was he fighting to come back and contest, the most inhumane jobs? Or was he fighting for economic freedom? I'm just saying that you are reducing us to non-entities in the land of our forefathers. The battle has always been about umnoto, the economy. Of course, yes, when they come here, when migrants come here, as they have for over a century, they will contest jobs with us. But when they get us, when they come here, they must find us economically heavy. We must have capital, we must own the banks, we must own the education institutions. But now, most of our men and those who claim that they fought for us, they are having these discussions which are not taking us anywhere. Because as we are discussing here, Stellenbosch, mafias, those who own Capitec, those who do not want us to own all these commanding heights of the economy are extremely excited that we are tearing each other apart and we are reducing ourselves, to a laughing stock of the world. Because instead of saying that South Africa is open for business, we are beating each other. We are supporting vigilantism under the guise of Baba Hambe. So I'm just saying that these discussions, for many of us who have been in the forefront of fighting capital, they are very reductive. And I'll continue with the discussion, Ziki. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go in the order of opposites. I know everybody wants to talk. Dr. Kagash, it is your turn. Please, guys, can we just make sure, write down your points. We'll just keep swapping Dr. Kagash and then Voice of RSA and then Yundate Obi. And then we'll go to King Zyle and then Thau Thau. Dr. Kagash?
Thank you very much, Ntiki. It's very interesting to listen to people who consider themselves Africanist. I'm not going to go down on history and say what happened in 1985 and 1846. I'm just going to go straight. I think we all know where Pan-Africanism started and why it was formed or why it was created. You can talk about your Du Bois, your Malcolm X, and so forth, the whole lot of people, and your latest PLO Lumumba. I think we are missing the point here. Pan-Africanism was very, very relevant more than 100 years ago. But right now, we are in a contemporary Africa. Pan-Africanism is irrelevant, it's outdated, and that's a fact. If you look at exactly what is happening right now. And most of the people who are speaking here, it's not about patriotism and Pan-Africanism. It's about us and what is happening right now. Anti-immigration marches and so forth. We're not going to sit down here and say, why don't we deal with the Ruperts, the Stellenbosch, and so forth? We are not going to do that. If you feel that those particular people or those corporates are a threat to a black society, fight them. Start your own fight. Start your own marches, or do whatever it needs to be done to fight those people. People who are fighting illegal immigration, which is a crime by itself, Entering any other country in the world is a crime. We seem to be encouraging criminality, that people can just cross borders whenever they want to. And what's amazing is that only South Africans are judged for being xenophobic and Afrophobic. No one else is doing that. Trump very recently has mass deported people of color, especially Mexicans. Nobody labeled Trump as xenophobic. Let's look at what's happening right now in Ireland. Not even a single person, not even Africanists themselves, have labeled Ireland as xenophobic, because it's understandable. It's very understandable. It's only when South Africa is doing what everyone else is doing in the world and they are called xenophobic. Ghanaians have before chased away Nigerians from their country. Nigerians have done that vice versa. Nobody labeled them. So tell me, are we going to sit down here and start talking about Pan-Africanism when the entire Africa wants to come in South Africa? There are only 1.2 million square kilometers that can accommodate 53 other states just to come here. South Africa used to be rich. It's not rich right now. South Africa is not coping. We don't have jobs. And you can say whatever you want. Illegal immigrants are taking our jobs. Foreigners are taking our jobs. Our services, everything else, our systems are overburdened.
No, Papa, please don't jump in. Speakers, can I ask that you please just control yourselves? We have to have this conversation in the most dignified way. Dr. Kakash, I'm coming to you now.
Okay.
Please, guys, you must speak in the order that we are planning so that the audience can actually enjoy and not hear people shouting over each other. So please, no one interject. If you've got an issue, just write it down. Thank you, Dr. Kakash.
Our systems are overburdened, whether it's electricity, whether it's water, and all that. There is a limit. There is nothing that's infinite. And we sit down and ask ourselves, why is ESCOM, why is rainwater and all of other SOEs collapsing or not functioning very well? It's because they are not coping. It's a fact. So we can sit down and and play humanity and holy and all that. South Africa cannot accommodate everyone, people. It's totally impossible, no matter what we say. And if these people Lumumba said they are contributing to our economy. If they can do that, if they're creating jobs, why don't they go home and create those jobs in their countries, create that wealth in their countries? Why are they fighting so much to be here? What's so special about South Africa? So everyone else should go home and just do what they're doing here in their own countries, and will remain here. And anything to do with countries that helped us during apartheid, guys, our exiles did not live in towns and cities. They were in camps. They had curfews. They were moving based on permits and all that. They were penalized. They never committed crimes and all this stuff that is happening right now. We can jump as high as we want. Nigerians are committing crimes in South Africa. We know that. Drugs, human trafficking, forced prostitution, you name it. We cannot deny that. So yes, we've been very, very kind to these people, and we cannot monetize what those people helped us with during apartheid. We don't know how many millions or billions they spent on us. We cannot monetize that. We have held them. We sent troops everywhere across Africa to help with peace and so forth in ethnic tension countries. We were not paid for that. We were helping our brothers. But there comes a point where we can't take anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Voice of RSA, I know you're burning inside there.
Yeah, I was busy taking some notes, hey, and I'd like to say that I'm really shocked that the lack of resources and the falling apart of our institutions in South Africa is being blamed on immigrants when we all know the truth that the reason why all of these things are falling apart is due to mismanagement by our government. It's true, yes, that there's not enough resources, but I feel like the people who are anti-immigration they start off well, but they end very badly because they start pointing at the wrong person. Because when I first heard about 2 billion rands being looted from Tembisa Hospital, the following day, I kept hearing people saying the reason why we don't have medicine in hospitals is because of immigrants. And I'm looking at these two stories and I'm like, how? The math is not mathing. 2 billion is stolen from a hospital. There's not enough medicine. It's because of immigrants. That logically does not make sense to me. So I feel like this is a very clear example of scapegoating because the blame is not being attributed to the correct cause. And let me just also address some of the other things that were said about other countries are not labeled as xenophobic. Because recently, just now, there's an incident happening in Ireland, in Belfast. And I saw a similar creator on social media busy saying, why are they not being labeled xenophobic? Why are they not being labeled? And Trump deported people. Why are they not being labeled xenophobic? Well, if you look at the media that's reporting in these countries, which are white countries, by the way, what the media is saying about these attacks and these deportations and whatever is that it's racist. They are not using the word xenophobic. They are using the word racist. They are calling these racist attacks, racist mob violence. So that is the term that they get cast with, because those are white majority countries. So if you have a place like South Africa, which is a black majority country, discriminating against immigrants, I don't think you can call that racist because we are both black people. Hence the word xenophobia. So, when it's white majority countries, I do feel like it's more appropriate to use the word racism. But if it's a black majority country, then xenophobia is the more appropriate word. And this idea that jobs are being stolen, guys, you can look at all the stats that have been released by Stats SA across over the years as our economy has been growing. Jobs are not being created. If no new jobs are being created, how are immigrants stealing jobs? Our country is not, the unemployment rate hasn't gone down. It's usually going down a little bit and then coming back up. It's been static and stable for like the past 20 years. And then someone will come and say that, oh no, there are all these jobs that are apparently being created and they're not being given to South Africans. That is a fallacy, and I reject it completely. And I'd like to speak about the I saw a headline the other day. It's related to this jobs thing that I'm referring to. I saw a headline the other day about 70% of checkers, 60/60 drivers or something, and then it's like they're all foreign nationals. So someone who believes in these anti-immigration rhetorics is gonna think, you see, checkers is hiring foreigners over local South Africans. But that is not true. Those drivers are not employees. They are independent contractors. I even made a video about this the other day. I was telling people, South Africans, if you want to become an Uber driver, a Checkers driver, you can do that today. Nothing is stopping you. Go rent a car, go rent a bike, and start doing deliveries. That's the type of jobs that these immigrants do. And these are jobs which don't have safety or security. And we've been telling people that no, these are not the jobs you actually want. Because if you did want them, there's no obstacle stopping you from attaining that job. And let me quickly say, oh yeah, there was a comment about how the amount of the help we received during apartheid cannot be quantified. Yes, it can. The UN did release a report in 1989, uh, quantifying the how much it actually costed all these frontline states to support South Africa in the fight against apartheid. And the amount is around, I think it was around $60 billion. However, that amount has not been adjusted for inflation. So that was the amount in 1989. The report is still there. If you were to adjust that amount for today's inflation, the amount that we owe these frontline states, the reparations that they never got, which they ended up having to take out loans to rebuild their infrastructure, and instead of spending money on developing their economy, if you were to quantify that amount, adjusted for inflation, it would be equivalent to almost half of our GDP. South Africa's GDP is $400 billion, so it would be around $250 billion. $60 billion in the 1980s is around $250 billion today. So as you can see, we have a huge debt on our hands for the assistance that we received. And I'm not saying, because what people who are against Pan Africanists like to do is they try to attribute, they try to, how do I say this, they try to say that we support things that we don't actually support. None of us here support illegal immigration. No one is saying illegal immigration is a good thing. None of us will say that. Our country has laws, yes. What we are saying is that the methods that are being used, this thing of disregarding people's human rights, attacking people when you know who the culprit is, that is not only is it not fair, it's nonsensical. And I do not even understand why people cannot are not following what we are saying. It's almost like we are speaking into the sky and no one is willing to listen. But yeah, I'll stop here for now because I know I've said a lot, and I'll give other people a chance to speak.
Thank you so much, Ndate Obi.
Thank you very much. My abiding frustration about us, South Africans and Africans in general, is the fact that if you listen to the debate that we're having here, we're addressing everything but what we're supposed to be focusing on. And this is the result of the kind of education that we have been subjected to, which taught us how to think rather than to think. And it is precisely for that reason that when our struggle, the final phase of our struggle, when we started engaging our enemy physically now, a man of Steve Biko's caliber was killed almost instantaneously. He was not taken through a court process like the Mandelas of this world, who used their bombs and all those things to announce the birth of Umkhonto weSizwe. Upon arresting them, after they had done that, they took them to prison. And then some 27 years or so later, they released them to become leaders. But not so with Steve Biko. Steve Biko was summarily executed. Why? These are some of the questions that we as Africans fail to ask ourselves. Just like this thing of these liberation movements. But anyway, maybe let me zero in to the nub of my position. Number one, you've got a country like China with a population of about 1.5 billion people. And China has got one president for that population. Here in Africa, with a population that is more or less the same as the population of China, we've got 54 presidents. How does that, explain our situation? I will tell you how it explains it. The Organization of African Unity was put up by the Kwame Nkrumahs, Patrice Lumumbas of this world for one purpose and one purpose alone: to bring Africans together to fight foreign domination. That was the purpose of the Organization of African Unity. And if you go into the arguments that were marshaled in support of putting together this togetherness of us as Africans, you will understand that one of the main justifications for that was that we are sitting with borders here that were not created by ourselves. These borders were created by our oppressors. And sadly enough, To this day, these borders are still used to dominate us, because this domination was nothing but a means to ensure that our rich, abundantly rich continent is looted as if there is no tomorrow. And how did they manage to sustain this for so long? In South Africa, for 32 years, we're still arguing about illegal and legal immigrants, and we're not even aware of what this portray us as. If you take, for example, there are Indians in this country. Why is a person called an Indian? It's because there's a country called India. This person comes from India. There are Chinese. They are called Chinese because they come from China. We've got Europeans. Europeans come from Europe. But no, there is no there's no issue about all those people. The issue is about Zimbabweans, it's about Nigerians, it's about Congolese who look like me and you. And this doesn't seem to make us relook at the way we're approaching things. And this is so because the kind of leadership that we have, these 54 leaders, all they are doing is to ensure that they are masters. And their masters are not us. We're supposed to be the masters. This is our continent. And as citizens of this continent, we are shareholders in everything that this continent has. But we are not getting any of those shares, but we are fighting about jobs. We're talking about leaders who are not creating jobs and all that nonsense. Personally, I was not fighting for my people to be given jobs. What I was fighting for 16 years, I was in exile. In those 16 years, I was fighting for the day when our continent is going to be returned back to us as Black people, right? Not as a South African, a Congolese or whatever nonsense, as an African who is a citizen of this continent. There is not a single country, the only country that tried to correct this thing in the manner it was supposed to be corrected was Libya. And what happened to the president of Libya? He was killed because Libya had put the resources of Gaddafi had put the resources of Libya at the service of the people of Libya. I've been in Libya. I've seen how Libya, the heaven that the Bible is telling you about, you could have seen it in Gaddafi's Libya. So the long and the short of our story here is that all these things that we are talking about are not helping us, because we've got a very simple and straightforward problem. The problem is that we've got right now a structure called the African Union. And all those people who are participating there, our so-called leaders, are there to serve, to ensure that their masters continue to loot our country. But to achieve that, they must make us aware that we've got borders here. And there's nothing that sickens me, like having to travel to Lesotho with a passport. Because Lesotho is part and parcel of our continent, never mind South Africa. But in the case of South Africa, it's even worse. Because if it can happen in China, why is it so difficult for us here in South Africa to come up with a formulation that says, right, we've got our continent, we've liberated our continent from foreign domination. Now, what is the way forward? The way forward is that we must undo that very potent weapon that was used by those who came to colonize us, right? And that weapon that they used was to divide us. Where you find Basutus now, the Basutus inside Lesotho, but if you cross the border into South Africa from Lesotho, you find that we've got far more Basutus than you have in Lesotho. And that goes for every country. Swaziland is the same story. We've got more Swazi-speaking people in South Africa than you have in Swaziland. Mozambique, right? We've got more Changan-speaking people in South Africa than you have in Mozambique. It goes on across the Western. I met people in as far afield as in Tanzania who were said to be Ngunis. You sit with those people, they speak their version of our Wanguni language, but you don't have any difficulty in understanding those people. But we're made to speak in English amongst ourselves here. We take trouble in making sure that the masters who have taken our country and they've not handed back our country. Now, for example, these reparations that we are expected to pay to the countries that that helped us during our struggle against apartheid. We owe those countries nothing because, for starters, they are not countries, right? What should happen is that there must be, there's no leader that I'm going to take serious in this continent who is not talking about reparations from the people who had colonized our country and they've looted our country as if there's not tomorrow. So long as we are busy talking about people coming to take our jobs and all that nonsense, we are not addressing the real problem that is facing us. The real problem is that any leader who is not talking about these borders, that they must go, a process that will lead you to the borders going. And thereafter, immediately once you've spoken about those borders, the next thing is the issue of reparations. We are owed trillions. We are super rich on this continent. We should not be talking about jobs. We should be talking about how do we get the how do we get the Pakistanians to come and work for us here in Africa? How do we get the Filipinos to come? How do we get some Americans? Because a lot of them could do well coming to South Africa, like it was the case in Libya. They were working there and they were better off than they were in America, because for the simple reason that we are living on a super rich continent. No African should be worrying about her job. Hey, how am I going to get a job? You should be naturally rich by having been born African, because that's how rich our continent is. So instead of talking about all these things, oh, these ones are coming to take our jobs and they are taking our businesses, our spaza shops in Soweto and all that nonsense. 32 years into the so-called democracy, right? Our people are still living in Soweto, and they are now the spaza shops that they were running are taken away from them. And then you've got people living in Deep Slot and so on and so forth. That should not be happening. And any government that claims to be my government could not have allowed this thing to continue for 32 years. There should be no black person that's living in a township. We should all be living in decent places and enjoying good quality of life. So my appeal here, I can go on forever, but I know that other people must. It's not fair to other people. But my appeal, fellow Africans, is that can we please agree to zoom in to the real problem? And the real problem is that, for starters, we've got leaders who answer to the Americans, who answer to the British, who answer to the Israelis. That's what is happening not only in South Africa, on the whole continent. So let's stop that. For example, we're producing diamonds here, we're producing gold. South Africa alone accounts for 80% of the world production of platinum. Where's the money from that bloody platinum? Why are our people suffering so much that they have to fight other Africans for jobs when just one mineral resource that comes from South Africa, right, is providing 80% of the world needs? That's platinum. With that alone, our country could be a veritable a heaven. So can we please stop focusing on non-issues and focus on the real issue? And the real issue is that up to now, our country has never had, and the whole continent has never had a true African government. Because if you are a true African government, the first thing that you are going to address is the resources that the country or the continent is possessed of,
Okay,
and
Dr.
you work
Obi,
out your economics,
can
right,
we share the
as to
mic,
how best to
please?
distribute these resources such that no African should be classified as being poor. Okay, for now,
Thank
can I
you.
hold on there? But
Yes,
this,
yes,
I
please.
get
Please
so
also, yeah,
taken
I
up by
know,
this
but
thing.
also them, they also get, and they affording you the respect. So please could we also just share the mic nicely? King Zyle?
Put on your mic. We can't hear you, ma'am.
Okay,
Me?
no.
No,
Oh,
we
okay,
can
No?
hear
Zyle.
her.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obi.
What's happening? I can't hear.
Can you guys hear me?
I can't hear you.
Am I audible to everyone?
King Zyle, you're audible.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much to everyone, whatever you guys are saying. I think this panel it's very powerful. It's a
I
very
can't hear
powerful
a
panel.
thing.
Tate Obi, can you mute your mic? Please mute your mic.
What is happening? I can't hear a thing.
Dr. Obi, if you can hear me, can you log off and then log on again? Because King Zyle is trying to. Okay, I'm going to remove him from the stage. Okay, King Zyle, you can stop. You can. I'm sure it's the system. You know how they control the networks as well. So whenever they want to destabilize, they do. I'm gonna get Ndate Obi to come back on again. I get to be why his mic is still making a noise here, but I'll ask him. But you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Okay, no. I was saying
Is
It's
everyone's mic muted?
No, I think now we are good. Okay. I was saying thank you to everyone who has been speaking. Everyone has very powerful points, mostly the ones who are deemed Pan-African. And I don't like to use the word Pan-African to describe my stance or the stance of people who are like me, because I think we are just human. Like, you're just human. It's so, being human right now today in the world that we live in today, it's a very rare skill that when people see you being human, they want to put on a label on top of your head so they can use it to attack you. So I hear most of the time when South Africans who are saying they are fighting illegal immigrants, they want to make an example of using Trump to make an example that Trump has been deporting illegal immigrants, but nobody calls him xenophobic. And they forget that Trump did not send his people, did not send his citizens to go and start beating people. He used his police to do that.
Thanks. I'm back.
He used the police to do that. So that is why Trump is not called xenophobic. And another thing, when they try to use the America as an example, America, they combined 50 states. That's 50 countries. And they made them one country, which is the United States of America. Do you understand? Where you can travel, if you are an American citizen, you can travel all over America without needing a passport, without needing a visa. The only one who needs a passport or a visa to go into America, it is you, African. So Africa has 54 states, 54 countries. Why don't we combine those 54 countries and make them the United States of Africa, just like America, just like China? Do you understand? Just like Europe. Do you understand? So the thing is, right now, the people who are leading us, as Ndate Obi was saying, the people who lead us are taking money from the Americans. They're taking money from all those people who come from outside, who do not have what's best for us in their hearts. What they want to do is to loot our minerals. So what we should do as Africans is we should put people who put people in power who will know will have the best for us and the future for us. Because right now the people who are in power, they do not want what's best for us. The only thing that they get happy on is us fighting each other. So I understand South Africans sometimes when they fight the immigrants, because why? They were taught. A lot of people don't understand what television is. Television, they tell a vision of how they want you to be. And they don't understand media. Media is a medium that they use to make people behave how they want to behave. So there were people who hijacked the media, because when you check Match and Match, when it started, it was only 15 guys who were matching. 15 guys, 20 guys, and then the media, each and every day, when they went and they gave them those interviews, they went onto the television. People saw that each and every day. And what is it? It is television. They were telling that vision to teach South Africans what to say. That is why all the time when you engage South Africans, they will tell you whatever they say, whatever response they have for you is the responses that Bongizo are using, is the responses that Pagela are using, is the responses that Jacinta is using, because that is what they taught them. So as Pan-Africanists or as Africans, we will need to hack the media and teach our people what we want them to know. Use the media to our advantage. The same way the Match and Match people who are funded by Israel and the USA have done, is to hijack the media right now so that the people can act the way they want them to act. So I don't want to say a lot, because I believe the people who are Pan-Africans or Africanists here, they already have powerful points, most of the things that I wanted to say. So this will be my last thing that I wanted to say about telling a vision. We need to hijack the media as Africans, people who believe in one Africa, because at the end of the day, we all have one ancestor. All of us, we have one ancestor with the same blood. You cannot fight someone who has the same skin as you. Those same Africans who you are fighting today, those are the same people that should be helping you fight the white people who own 86% of the land here in South Africa. They own 86%. As black people, we only own 4% out of all that. So the people we should be fighting are the white people. But how are we going to fight them when you are busy chasing the people who are supposed to help you fight those people? Thank you.
Thank you, Ras Thau Thau.
Thank you so much. Yeah?
I'm glad you're still with us, even despite your electricity problems.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
Thank you.
I never really back down from confrontation, arguments, reasoning, discussion, any of the kind. Do I give two sounds? I'm using two gadgets here because when Tate Obi was speaking, I could not hear him.
Yes, there is a feedback. Please, can you turn off the one? Yeah.
Let me do that.
Thank you.
How is it now? How is it now?
It's much better. It's much better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to the contributions. This is quite robust. We are learning a lot from each other. The voice of RSA, King Zyle, Date Obi, Sis Phaphano, and Dr. Gagash. Unfortunately, my sister and my comrade, Sis Phaphano, she's telling half truth and complete lies. This is one woman I worship. I recommended her to so many people until 2 weeks back. She attacked me on her podcast and show her true colors why she called me to her podcast. That's why I was asking you, Sisinziki, that is this not a setup? And you mentioned the people who are in the podcast except her, and then the next thing you mentioned her name, I knew that, okay, it's a setup. And then I've been battling for 3 days that should I be combative as a former freedom fighter and a soldier, or should I withdraw? But I thought, no, it's okay. We did find one another with Sis Phaphano after all those things that she said and attacked me and all of that. We went to some nice restaurant, we chill, we eat. She showed me her benevolence and everything. She gave me some of her advices, which I don't accept some of them. you know, because she was like, oh, you must not fight for the poor. I'm the poor. I'm part of the have-not. And I tell you that the man who do maintenance in my yard, he got beaten by a brick 2 weeks back by my brothers from across the Limpopo, because in my community, I've already told you that it is 80% made up of undocumented Africans. I'm not going to say foreigners because there's no African who's foreigner in Africa, but there is documentation. So I speak from lived experience. I'm a Rasta man, so Rastafari always said is a livity, is a lived experience. It's not a learned behavior. So my lived experience is what influenced my position. And my position is that I'm dealing with crime on a daily basis. I either going to cut off here or sleep where I am right now to go to my house where there's no electricity, or I'm going to engage on a muted video, because my reality there is that my cables are stolen. So I might not have, I'm going to run on data. I might not have clear visual. It's my reality. That is what influenced me. I organize anti-xenophobic marches from Uval to Parktown. And I went and meet with the African Diaspora Forum, which represent, that time was about 44 African countries that live in Uval. And I watched them watching us, laughing at us like we're stupid, marching for their own rights. None of them joined us. The Rasta community attacked me and said I was bought. And then I made it worse. After the march, I took about 30 Rastas I had. I took them to a lunch at the Ethiopian restaurant at GP Street. So I speak from a lived experience. I'm a Pan-Africanist through and through.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Mamia, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. I think that the Obi should log off and log on again. I'll phone him this side, but okay. Ras Thau Thau, you can continue.
So I said that me and Sis Phaphano, we did find one another after the thing. She gave me her position, we reasoned, and I agree with some of the point that she advanced. But I will also not want to, like I said, that me, I'm not the have-little, I'm not the middle class, I'm part of the have-not. During apartheid, I was part of the people. After apartheid, I'm part of the people. I'm not one to invalidate the struggle of our people and call them names, because I try to look at the merits of their complaints. Now, one of the things that I find it to be quite problematic is that majority of us, even the struggle leaders, they were educated by domestic worker mothers. I mean, Sarafina is a good example of that, where Leleti goes to her mother in town, Miriam Makeba playing that part. And so to say that the local economy is insignificant, it is not possible that all people in South Africa can be captains of industry. It is not possible that all people in South Africa can control the commanding heights of our economy. It is always that few, a minority among the majority. Now, to say all of us must aspire beyond the spaza shop economy, which is supposed to be making 200 billion a year, it is immaterial. The fact that Somalians come from Somalia and come here and establish the spaza shop mafias and kill South Africans for trying to get into that business, it means is a valid and valuable economy to tap into. The fact that the Minister of Small Businesses, Stella Ndabeni Abrams, talks about 500 million set aside to support spaza shop, it means is a very significant part of our economy. So I'm not the one to dismiss something because I'm not part of it, that, oh, I'm not into spaza shop, I must aspire into mining, I must aspire into industry. It is not humanly possible. Some people, even if all illegal immigrants leave South Africa, we will still need domestic workers. One person who used to be a Speaker of the Parliament employs 134 illegal immigrants. One person who used to be a Secretary General of the ANC employs 94 illegal immigrants in his farm. The president of this country is in trouble because He employed illegal immigrants. They stole his money under the sofa or the couch or whatever it were, and they had to track them all the way to Namibia because they did not want to employ South Africans. So not all of us are going to fit into this big economy. It's going to take the brains of the likes of Sis Phaphano, because not everybody will be able to control the commanding heights of the economy and to run mining. I might want to run mining, but the experiences failed that. Idi Amin proved it in 1972. He chased all the Asians. He gave the shops to everybody in Uganda, and then they started to sell clothes based on the size of their clothes, at 32 centimeter, instead of the size of the price itself. Because not everybody who get into business is business savvy themselves. So now we need to, so we need to be quite very relative and relevant when we deal with the situation of the people of South Africa, that as much as you can look down on the spaza shop economy, local economy, but there are people who are aspiring for that. And there were South Africans who were running that economy before this influx that is happening now. So to just dismiss it and say, oh, this is a little, these are crumbs, it is invalid. Because you know, when Mandela came out of jail, he went to the Pondoland, and then one of the elders there said to him, we plant ganja here, and it is with this ganja that we took you guys to Fort Hare. You can consider that legal economy. I'm in the ganja space. I'm a Rasta man. I lead a lot of Rasta organizations in South Africa. I'm one of the most prominent Rastafari in South Africa. I tell you, white people in 2025, there was a presidential cannabis and hemp pakisa that was held from the 19th to the 25th of June. Some group called Grow One Africa, made up of white people, they were boasting how they make 18 million out of ganja, and they've paid 4 million to SARS. So there is no money-making system that is too little for the people. Some people, they will choose to sell brooms. Some people, they will choose to run spaza shop. Some people, they will choose to sell all these things on the side of the street because it is relative and relevant to their needs. Now, the other thing that the voice of RSA made in terms of illegal immigrants and damage to property, it is documented. We know it. I don't have a car. I'm one of the have not. I don't have a car. I'm one of the poor individual. I walk. I go to Uvel, Berea, Hillbrook. Basically, when I first met Mamia Osisinziki, was at a Rasta house, where I am the founder and of the high priest of the church there in the year 2000. I started going to Uvel in 1998, when it was a multicultural, multiracial community. Right now, it is a threat even for local South Africans. I was marked there, cell phone taken there from my fellow Africans who look like me, who don't necessarily come from here. So there are my African brothers, they are connecting illegally to the grid. You can watch, you can go through Joburg streets. They are connecting illegally to the grid. They are contributing to the load shedding in this country. 3 weeks back, I was coming from Lesotho. I passed through Joburg Street because I was buying fabrics because of one of my queens make clothes, like these things that I always wear. I was going to buy that. I found that Dada Morero has closed Joburg in his cleaning program. And what happened was 90% of the shops in Joburg were closed. Why? Because they don't comply with our city bylaws. Now, if Pan-Africanism and our Africanism excuse criminality and illegality, it is problematic. And it is require us to have a serious conversation. Because as I have said from the beginning of the conversation, that this conversation, we're dealing with complex issues. They need a complex solution, not a simple solution. So we can't completely excuse our African brothers and sisters in the name of Pan-Africanism. We are Pan-Africanist, we are Africanist. But where crime is committed, which is not accepted in any country in the continent, we need to be very clear about that. Instead of giving excuses and start to label South Africans. I said to Mamia Sisinziki that you see this poster she shared about Africanists versus Patriots. She was supposed to have given me the right of reply, but I joined later. I said it is problematic in a sense that it is assuming that when you are a patriot, you're not necessarily an Africanist. I'm a patriot, I'm an Africanist, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm a APLA soldier through and through. People telling us, what are you doing about Orania? Before there was one kill the boer, kill the farmer, we had one settler, one bullet. I was part of that platoon, Yaga Sabelo Palmer. Last battalion, last company, last platoon, last section. I'm the one of the last soldiers of APLA to come back from South Africa to South Africa in 1994 in June. We're carrying the files. We're the ones who are handing over the farms to the Tanzania, the camps to the Tanzanian. We were forced out. The OAU started to give us a rotten ration. We were forced out. They said the PAC must go and join the ANC to negotiate this CODESA, this Pretoria Minute, this Proteskir Minute. We were forced out by the Liberation Committee of the OAU that why are you still fighting when Palmer will be declaring the year of Great Storm, the year of the ballot and the bullet. We were forced out. We were kicked out of Tanzania to come back home to negotiate by force because we were considered to be unpatriotic. We were considered that South Africa is negotiating. We are busy fighting. So we were the one who were killing the Boer, and we were stopped both by the OAU, by African countries that kick out. So when you tell us that we must deal with Orania, we were dealing with the Orania. And then we were stopped and we were forced to negotiate. So now anybody who know illegal white immigrants, they must report them to the PAC and to the EFF to deal with them. Right now, March and others are dealing with the issues that are facing us on a daily basis. Those who are running drugs in our community, those who are doing human trafficking, 337 South African women are in prisons, according to DICO. Department of International Relations and Cooperative, 337 women, South African women, are in prison for being drug mules of the Nigerians. I'm going to mute and use another phone because I have to leave this space now to go to my dark city. Give thanks.
Give thanks. We are wrapping up. I'm going to also put up the link for any audience members who want to join in the conversation. Phaphano, you know it's your turn. Words from you, please, my queen.
No, thank you so much. I think let me start by demystifying some of the narratives that we commonly hear. For example, that Somalians, Ethiopians, and others have captured what they call the spaza shop economy. On a daily basis, 2 billion leaves the townships, the villages, informal settlements. They go to your Stellenbosch, they come to Sandton, and they go to white communities. 2 billion on a daily basis. That tells you that individually, Black people might be poor, but collectively, they've got spending power. And I think that's the conversation that we are not having. The conversation that people are having are that they must fight with Somalians and Ethiopians because the assumption is that these people are taking their space, which they call the township economy. But the reality is that the township economy is much bigger and broader than what people are told. Hence, you find that the likes of March and March, Operation Dudula are primarily in the media space because many pundits who have a counter narrative to white capital, to white monopoly capital are not given the same attention. I can tell you now the manner in which the Somalians, Pakistanis, and others have managed to capture the value chain of the township economy and the villages is primarily because they own and control the value chain. This is what we are talking about when we speak of the means of production, when we talk about the commanding heights of the economy. The commanding heights of the economy is not necessarily having to have ownership of the mines, but it's primarily about the value chain. From production, from the onset to production, manufacturing, and so forth. So the challenge is that as Black people in the main, we do not have the same sophistication as a Somalian who owns a spaza shop, stays in that spaza shop, pays in that spaza shop, buys from another Somalian. So the money trickles around the community itself. So it's quite a different system, and we have not been able to train ourselves so that we understand how the Somalians have been able to compete with white capital. Because the reality is that the people that we are claiming are taking the spaza shops are competing toe to toe with white capital. You cannot tell me that ShopRite today wants to have the Somalians and Pakistanis. They don't want them in the townships. They don't want them in the villages. Hence, you have a counter narrative, and the counter narrative is that someone else is taking our economy, but over and above that, someone else is taking our jobs. The other reality is that when people say that, when they talk about jobs or people are taking our jobs, and the argument that they make is that, for example, the middle class is hiring these migrants, hence they are talking from an ivory tower and so forth. The reality is that the middle class is living, from check to check. The assumption that the middle class has got money to spend on South Africans, or they can spend on minimum wage, it's a fallacy. 3 weeks ago, I even wrote an article because I'm a weekly contributor responding to Zungula. And I also wrote an article responding to the president, who was saying that they are going to criminalize those who employ migrant workers or undocumented migrants. But the reality is that, one, you've got politicians who are making policies in parliament which do not take into consideration the daily lived reality of the middle class and SMEs who do not afford minimum wage. The reality is that as a middle class, if you are a middle class, you cannot afford, as I said, to pay a minimum wage, including a person who's got a company. And the reality is that it's the middle class which is paying taxes, the larger margin of the taxes. So what you are having here is that you are having politicians who are making decisions that they themselves do not understand. I mean, you also have a president who hires undocumented migrants, but then they've got, the luxury to say that a middle class who's a check away from poverty cannot hire an undocumented migrants, because the assumption is that the middle class has got money, so they can perpetually pay for everything, they can pay minimum wage and all of those things. So I just want to now come to solutions, because I think the biggest challenge is that as the Black majority, we focus on problems, and in many instances, of course, these problems are created and manufactured somewhere. The issue of undocumented migrants is not unique to South Africa. The issue itself of xenophobia, yes, of course, it's not unique to South Africa, but the media attention that it gets when it's here, it is unprecedented. Nsiki, I can tell you now, you have been in the media space for over a decade. You will not get the same media attention in terms of the narrative that you're pursuing. But someone like Jacinta, the other lady from Operation Tutula, they are getting ultimate media attention. You go to SABC, Newsroom, ENCA, every media house is giving them media attention. And you ask yourself, what is the ultimate objective? And as Zulu, one of the panelists indicated, the idea here is to ensure they capture the minds of our people so that they deviate us from talking about the economy and the ownership of the means of production. I vehemently disagree with Thau Thau. I mean, when I was growing up, I was a Rasta myself. Not a Rasta, but, I used to smoke weed and all of those things. And I confined myself, to the religion of Rastafarism. But I refuse to listen to anyone who tells me that in the land of my forefathers, I must aspire to be a domestic worker, or I must aspire to be a gardener. I think that's an insidious narrative, and we should not accept that narrative. Of course, we should accept what our people are going through, but you cannot have a country where billions every day billions leave our township, they leave the hands of the poor, and the poor themselves are not benefiting. Why is it that our people are not confronting the malls, the Capitec of this world? You've got your JP Ferrari, you've got your Mulder and Mountain and others who are in Stellenbosch, who are making money from the poorest of the poor. Capitec as an entity is making money in the townships. Pick and Pay, your Boxer and others are making money in the townships. Hence, I have said that individually, Black people, notwithstanding that they are poor, collectively their spending power is worth billions. Hence, you find all these white companies in the malls. But you will never see Black people confronting your Capitec, your ShopRite, your PEP, and your Ackermans, which are owned by the same people, because Black people basaba belungu. Thau Thau will not confront white capital hand-on. All these organizations, they will not go directly and confront white capital. In Alex, which is not far from my place, they will not come to Sentin, which is a walking distance, and confront capital, which continues to keep them poor, in degradation and in squalor, because generally we suffer from an inferior complex. That is why it is easy to attack someone who is darker than us or someone who looks like us. Nsiki, it is time that we, advance our conversation. It is time that we ensure that our discussions go beyond 50 of us, 100 of us, because the reality is that those who've got a counter narrative which promotes white monopoly capital, which promotes capital flight, which promotes investment strikes, it's gaining traction. It means that those who are in power are funding the narrative of Jacinta, they're funding the narrative of Action SA. They're not funding the narrative of progressives. They're not funding the narrative that says that as Black people, this is the land of our forebears and it is our right to participate in the economy. And I think that is the biggest challenge. So now in closing, I just wanted to say that I think that it is about time that we get highly organized. I've been saying this for a very long time. We are disorganized. We are not funding ourselves. And that is the major problem. It is easy to go to some of these organizations because they're funded. I mean, I was listening to the chairperson of Action SA, who is a product of the Democratic Alliance. I was listening to him saying that in our country, we've got so many Africans. And he was pursuing the Swart Gevaar narrative. And because now it has gained traction, even Black people or some section within our community were agreeing with him, agreeing with the oppressor and the exploiter, because the narrative is manufactured, the narrative is being funded. So I'm just saying that in Nsiki, we must be very careful as a people to what we consume, because our people are on their phones on a daily basis. They see the social media narrative that Mabahambe. We are seeing even your Gaten McKenzie and many others who are now part of the Blue Light Brigade. They are changing their stance on some of these things. But I'm just saying that it's an indictment that 32 years into a democracy, and as yesterday when we were celebrating 50 years of the 1976 uprising, our generation, which should be having a mission, we are fighting for breadcrumbs. That we are not fighting, especially some of us who are in a better space, we are not fighting to uplift the poorest of the poor so that they come out of squalor, so that they get to enjoy the lives that we must live. Nsiki, it must not be an anomaly to live in Sentin. It must not be an anomaly to live in Stellenbosch, to live in all these places. That is what our forebears fought for. So we cannot be shy when our people fight for better material conditions. And in closing, it was America Cabral who said that people are not fighting for ideas that are in anybody's head. They are fighting to win better material conditions. So I think for me, that is the key thing. Let us teach our people that they can live better lives, that they also deserve to live better. And let us continue to ensure that we counter this, regressive narrative of President Jacob Zuma and your March and March, the man that we supported for decades, who was advancing the narrative of white monopoly capital, radical economic transformation, and we believed in him. Now he is working toe in toe because he wants to win votes, miseducating our people, misleading our people. So I'm just saying that it is time that as progressive, we come together. We also contest in the battle of ideas. And I'm just going to end it here, Nziki. I think I've said my piece, but it's quite an indictment that I sit with Thau Thau, who preaches Rastafarism. And Rastafarism, it's about one love, it's about peace, it's about the diaspora coming back to the continent, not what he is preaching. Violence, hatred, and vigilantism. That's not what Rastafarism is teaching. We might not look like Rastas, but we know ideals of humanism, we know ideals of love and peace. So I just want to stop here and allow some of the speakers to come in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I know Dr. Kakash, you wanted to come in there. Yes, it is your turn. And we welcome the public. We see we've got a new member. I just ask that everybody keep their videos on and makes it look nice, because as Black people, we must also have nice things. So please make sure that your videos are always on. Dr. Kakash?
Thank you, Nziki. It has been a privilege to be with everyone else here. I know we differ in ideologies, we differ in beliefs, we differ in how we say things, but we're all Africans. And one of the speakers said, we have got powerful speakers here, and specifically the Pan-Africanists. I didn't know that we are in a competition here, really. And I didn't know that the rhetoric is smart or powerful, Almost everyone is talking about artificial borders. No country was created with borders. All the countries, the US or America, Europe, Africa, everyone else, Asia, there were no borders. Not at all. All of them are artificial. We're not going to sit here and argue about things that are totally beyond our control. There is absolutely nothing we can do with borders. We've got 54 countries in Africa. And since the beginning of Africa, or since these borders were formed, not even a single leader without, the old Pan-Africanists that we know who tried to preach one Africa. That ended about 50 years ago. All African, or almost all African leaders, including our own Ramaphosa, are corrupt to the core. So which one of them do you think is going to agree when we say, let's have one country and one president? Who's going to be the president? That's going to be chaos. These guys are all mafias. They are all corrupt. They all want to have their hands in the cookie jar, and they are not going to give it up to anyone ideologically. So that's one fact. And the other thing, let's focus on the now and the future, and stop being hypothetical and stopping about if, when, how, and all that. We are here. The issues that are beyond our control, there's nothing that we can do about it. Pan-Africans are powerful. I agree with that. But we are Pan-Africanism and goes hand in hand with conspiracy theories. We all talk about those things that we think happened and they never happened. We cannot avoid the fact that, guys, our dear brothers from Africa, since they came here or since they are here, mass chunk of crime, mass chunk of everything that is happening is done by them. You look at the destruction of infrastructure. We had trains since apartheid, but we never stole the railway lines. We never stole copper cables. We never, we never hijacked buildings. We never peddled drugs as they are peddled now. We never trafficked human. We never participated in forced prostitution and so forth. And these things are happening right now, and seriously. And someone said that Somalians are contributing to our economy. I totally refuse that. Somalians have captured our sponsorship business because they have what we call sponsorship mafias. That's bullying every South African out of that sector. They are selling expired and poisoned foodstuffs, and we are sitting here and clapping hands for them for killing our children with that stuff. No, guys, we cannot turn and blind eye on that. And we all think the media is captured, depending on which side of the fence you are. Africanists, they think the media is captured. They think the media is reporting negatively about them, and we think that we think that's the same. The media is covering much and much. It's covering all these matches, but look at what they are saying. They are the ones who are preaching xenophobia and Afrophobia. They are capturing these events negatively. Yes, they are being captured, but by not us. And the very same people that we are fighting against, the white people. And we are going to sit here, all of us, and say, what about Orania? What about white corporates? What about the Ruperts? I'm not against that, people. I think we should fight them. But if you believe that they should be the main targets, form your own organizations, form your own marches and fight them. And leave us fight what we think we believe in, and go and fight you, the Ruperts. We'll support you. We'll not sit down and condemn you, because we know that they are enemies too. So when you start talking about white monopoly, capitalism and all this stuff, Malema preached that, Zuma preached that, and all that, and you listen to them. All of them have made a U-turn. They are now supporting the very same white monopoly capitalist. It's some phrase. Some people think it's a bombastic word. It's just a phrase. It exists, but no one is fighting it. If we're going to sit down and say who is contributing more jobs to black people between our brothers, our African brothers, and the Ruperts, the Ruperts are doing that. Take the Ruperts and the corporates out of Africa, out of South Africa right now. Millions of people will be unemployed. Go to the stock exchange and look at most of the companies that are registered there. They belong to the Ruperts. So these people, no matter that they are our enemies, they are also contributing to our economy and to employment of the black society. So we cannot condemn them totally and accept all these guys who are bringing poison into our country. No, we are not fighting Africans as we speak right now. We are fighting our failing government. If Ramaphosa and his ANC were manning the borders, were controlling our immigration policies and so forth, we wouldn't be where we are right now. It's our government that failed us, and we have to march. We have to shout as much as possible against them. Most unfortunately, we cannot just say we face them, we fight them, without mentioning exactly what we are doing. Guys, I'm a child of a domestic worker. My mother was a domestic worker for the rest of her life. There are three of us. We are all flipping graduates, multiple graduates. I don't know how she did it. So I'm not going to underplay a domestic worker. I'm not. It's a job that South Africans need, as they needed it more than 100 years ago. I'm not going to condemn the gardeners and so forth and say, no, there's a job that we don't do. We did those jobs before these guys came here. And we're not going to sit down and say, no, now we're not going to do it. White people are domestic workers in the US. They're digging holes with doctorates. They are waitress and waitresses in the restaurants with multiple degrees. No job is small. Every little job counts, just like every vote counts. Ntsiki, you must do this again. I love it.
Definitely, because we are running out of time. We're meant to finish at 8, because at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays on MOYA, we have MOYA Political Series, and actually Ras Thau Thau's got an episode. So we do want you guys to go and watch there. So can I ask that we shorten our inputs now, because we really don't have much time, and give it, I'm coming to you. Just short thingy bit so we can hand over also to the audience. Sure, voice of RSA, and then Date Obi, and then I'm going to hand over to the audience.
All right, I just wanted to quickly speak about something. The crimes, the crimes which are being blamed on illegal immigrants and everything. I wholeheartedly do not agree with this sentiment. And I did see the other day that everyone who's on the anti-immigration fence keeps throwing around stats. Stats are just flying all over the place, but there's no sources. No one is saying where they got the stats. Even the leader of the March and March movement came out the other day alleging that 60% of criminal offenses committed in Gauteng are done by foreign nationals. And I went and searched everywhere to find the source. The only source I could find was a Times article which said that a police commissioner said they were basically reporting on what a police official said. So this is not something that was like written down like in the books. And what the police official said is that the 60% of the people who were arrested in that specific incident were foreign nationals. So these are people who haven't even been convicted yet of a crime. And this is an article that was released over 10 years ago. So we are still quoting stats from singular events that occurred many years ago. It doesn't make sense. And I really would like to just say in closing that I wholeheartedly disagree with this framing every single immigrant as criminals. All of a sudden, all these illegal immigrants are criminals. So even though people know how terrible the Home Affairs system is, we've all been to Home Affairs. We all know that all the inefficiencies that it has and that the people in there are corrupt. What are you gonna do if you have to renew your permits and then the people there are telling you that no, you if you want things to go quicker, you better pay a bribe. You better pay a bribe. You know that our officials are doing that. South African citizens who have a duty as public servants to do the right thing in those offices are out there asking for bribes. And then when these people participate in the in this system that we have, we blame them for being here illegally. We can't cast a whole entire net on a group of people. We can't punish all immigrants for the faults of a few, because in one moment you'll tell me that Nigerians are selling drugs, Somalians are kidnapping, and then when I go and see at those camps of the people who are being driven to with buses to go back to their countries, it's innocent people, it's women and children. Where are the drug dealers? Where are all these people that you are fighting against, saying that they are destroying our economy? They are not there. I'm sure they are paying protection fees to gang members. They're still gonna stay here to make their money. The people you are chasing away are not the people you are complaining about. And that is one aspect of the anti-immigration movement that I will never agree with. I do not believe in collective punishment. I do understand, yes, some of them are committing crimes, but it's not all of them. And you can see as a result of these xenophobic tensions that it's innocent people who are paying the price for what's going on. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to say quickly, and I'll allow other people to go ahead.
Blessings, thank you. Date Obi, can we keep it brief? Closing
Yeah,
comments?
thank you very much. We've lost a lot of time on dealing with symptoms rather than focusing on the problems, because 99% of the things that we have been talking about here are things that have been taken off. They are tired now. The main thing is, how do we fix the problem? Not how do we deal with the symptoms, giving statistics and all those things. The simplest way of dealing with a problem is zooming into the problem itself and addressing it in a manner that is practical. Now, from where I am sitting now, the challenge that is confronting us as Africans, never mind South Africans, is for us to understand that the problems that we're sitting with are problems of a leadership that we regard as our leadership when it is not our leadership. It is nothing more than puppets of the people who are responsible for our miseries. It's as simple as all that. Therefore, what do we do? Let's look at what's happening in West Africa, in a country called Burkina Faso. It is teaming up with your your Mali, with your Niger, and now other countries now coming on board because they've got a leader who is serious about addressing the problems that are confronting Africa. And those problems are problems of wars that we have in Africa that are not made in Africa. They are made in what? Why has the Democratic Republic of Congo been at war for such a long time? The reason why the Democratic Republic of Congo will never ever be free of wars is the fact that the Democratic Republic of Congo is endowed with wealth in terms of natural resources that the whole of Europe put together cannot equal. But through the puppets that they are having there, it is for that reason that, for example, Patrice Lumumba was assassinated and he was replaced by a scumbag, a criminal, the worst kind of a criminal that you can ever think of, called Mobutu Sese Seko. That man looted his country to a point where the country itself had to borrow money from him when it had no. Now we're sitting with a similar with a similar problem throughout Africa. So let's look at our leaders. Let's ask whether our leader is really focusing on solving the problems that are messing us up for such a long time, where we have poverty existing side by side with opulence. That's what needs to be to be addressed. So for us to be talking about, you see, we cannot remove the borders and all those things. There's nothing we can't do. These borders, if we as Africans don't want them, they will go. If, for example, you've got a caliber of leadership such as Burkina Faso has, a guy who will say, look, ECOWAS, the regional organization of the countries there, ECOWAS is not serving our interest. So what do? We form our own organization, and anybody who shares our ideas with us can come in. Because right now, there's war going on there. Burkina Faso is attacked from neighboring countries. How is this possible? It is possible because France is buying the sellouts in the neighboring countries and using them to destroy what is happening. Now, this is what has been happening throughout Africa, throughout our history. So all I'm asking, maybe next time when we have this kind of an exercise, we need maybe to determine what it is that we want to address, so that we don't squander a lot of time and oxygen talking about things that are not helping us. What must help us is how, first and foremost, we must identify the quality of leadership that we have. It is not our leadership. So now, how do we get around that? How do we solve that problem? How do we allow people who are against us to be ruling us for as long as they have been doing? So really, I'm a bit frustrated, but please, I think next time we have an exercise like this, and sooner rather than later, let's have a proper exercise that will be focusing on finding practical and realizable objectives.
Thank you so much. We do rely on the panel to bring the solutions, and that's why we do invite you. So next time, please be generous with the solutions also, guys. I'm going to make sure that we continue this conversation in the next couple of days. I'm just going to check everybody's diaries. I want to give a chance to some of the audience. User Dalukona. User Ho, good evening.
How to do
Let's
this?
take it down.
Hello? 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 Oh, can you hear me? I don't know how to do it. I'm good. Okay, I cannot hear myself. Now, all I'm hearing is people flapping their gums for just no reason. They go around the, yeah, I'm sorry. They go around the bush trying to just come to just one point. Oh, our forefathers. Oh, we revolution. Let me tell you this. People are worried about, you know, uh, issues that are real, issues that touches them at the moment. So I'm not worried about my forefathers. I'm not worried about listen. This whole fallacy about, oh, just because you look like me, blah blah blah. It's all fucking gaslighting. Let's stop this nonsense. The reason why there are people like Jacinta, the reason why there are people like Umtagati, they're tapping into something that is real. All these people try to be, let's be pan African and all this. That thing is obsolete. People want, the reason why grassroots movements are coming up is because people are tired of these people trying to be, I'm political just because I say all these words. Talk to a language that people would understand. Talk about issues that impact people. So you guys sitting there, like I was listening to the other lady with the hat. She go on and on about this, trying to look all sanctimonious. Oh, I'm holier than thou. I love people. And this guy with the beard, he always comes on my feet. I don't know his name. He just went on. I call him Kanyelo because the way he goes on and on and on, he looks like he's so lonely. He doesn't have life. He comes on and blame South Africans each and every fucking time. Yet you live in South Africa. I don't live in South Africa, but guess what? I love South Africa so much that I'm engaged in these issues. So what I'm trying to tell you is you guys need to come to reality. Come to reality, be pragmatic about these things. People who live in the let me tell you this. If I fly back to South Africa and, the airport, it looks great and everything, the minute I step out of the airport, it's all squalor. And it wasn't like that in the past up until we started, importing all these people. And they selling on the street and people say, oh, they poor. Let me tell you this. The reason why people go to America, the reason why people go to these countries and take pictures on Instagram, because these places keep their places look nice and beautiful. Even people who are in politics, they invest in other countries. Why? They shit their own country. I mean, I'm so disappointed when I go to South Africa looking at all these people who come from Namibia and all that sitting on the street. Why would you leave your own country to sit on the street of South Africa and sell banana? And then you tell them, oh, we all Africans. These people should be ashamed of themselves. These few people, the Mkanyelwa and Utaga, I call him Utaga because he's trying to be Ushaga with all that head. So here's the thing. They need to be ashamed of themselves. We are South Africans. We love this country. When Bafana Bafana is playing, we all cheer because this represents us. And then you're going to go around. Let me tell you this. The culture, one thing that has made money for these people that are lonely and don't have a future or don't have a career, like Umkanyelo and Utaga, it's because they criticize. Criticism has become a currency on this social media. If you come and criticize, oh, you're going to be famous. Because guess what? Criticizing is so lazy. It's so lazy thinking. Somebody builds something, you criticize. Well, guess what? You get people who are so lazy like you who are going to say, oh, yeah, you're right. Now you have all these Africans making all this content with their generator and the airtime from MTN and criticizing South Africa. We need to stop. We need to be patriotic. The reason why America is like this is because people love America. People love their country. Look at Ireland, for example. Nobody is talking about it, Because why? Oh, they're white. We cannot touch them. Okay. But then you have South Africans who are not fighting anybody. They're just marching. They might look barbaric, but they're not fighting anybody. They're not killing anybody. But guess what? Island is burning. People is burning. Is on fire. But guess what? Nobody want to talk about that. Oh, no, they don't look like us. I don't give a shit about looking up. If I go on.
Thank you. Please, can you watch your language also,
Okay, I'm
because
sorry.
we've got grown-ups on the platform.
All
Yeah.
right, hold on. If I walk on the street, I come across Ray right now or Shaniqua, I mean African Americans, they will remind you, you're not part of them. You know what I mean? So this whole thing about, oh, you look like us, we together, that stuff needs to go. The people that I can relate to is the people that live within the borders of South Africa. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? I don't give it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining in from the audience. And we're going to have our last comment from the audience before we say goodbye to our guests. Please remind our audience members, please come in with high caliber and with good manners, because we do invite guests to come onto this platform and we respect their time. So we must respect them too. Hotep Suit, good evening.
Greetings, good people. Just watching from Botswana. Kumotlung ke tshaba go tsosa modumo. Ne ke re go bangwe ba lebeletse hela. But I think the gentleman is right about people addressing what affects them, you know. Everybody wants to be in a good place, you know. But I'm a student, or a student of history. So sometimes I hear an argument about how a lot of us, you know, we have left our village. Even myself, we in the village where my parents stay now. Even the headman will tell me, "Now your home is where your father was born," you know. So I just keep thinking about that thing of how a lot of us were just displaced, you know. So I think it takes a lot of compassion. Also, compassion is not a bad thing to think about what somebody is going through. And also, I think when immigrants, they bring a lot of, like, I can only give an example of where I live. You know, you can learn a lot of things. You know. Because we never know how developed was that Zimbabwe even before independence, you know. Because now where I am, we don't have many big cities or built up areas like that, you know. So sometimes we look down on people, and yet they come from somewhere that is more developed than where we are, you know. So it's just voicing my voice, you know. I don't think I have a lot to contribute. I think it's true about, I've heard people say that the media narrative, you know, is they don't agree with it a lot, you know. And so I can't tell you what is happening or what is the problem, what is the solution. I think I'm not being lucid this time. So thanks.
Thank you, Rasta. Thank you so much. A reminder to the audience to please come Ujimile, because the guests have gym for the session. So in future, please, guys, we're going to continue this conversation. As I say, I'm going to speak to our guests and find out when they're available again. It is 8 o'clock on the dot. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Kakash. Thank you, Dr. Obi. I don't know if you quickly want to say something in 30 seconds to wrap up. Kapale Sharp, you'll wait for the next session. Okay, fine.
I would appreciate my 30 seconds.
30 seconds, please, because it's 8 o'clock on the dot. And right now, we've got a MOYA political series about to start with Ras Thau Thau. So the audience has to move. 30 seconds.
Yeah, all I'm appealing for is let us now stop this thing of intellectualizing and all sorts of things and focus on the problems. We've had 32 years to learn that we are not properly managed. We're being mismanaged. The question is now, how do we overcome that?
Yes, so the next session will be about solutions, possibly this weekend. Guys, I'll check who is available to speak to us because we do actually want to learn. Thank you so much for joining the session. It has been such a privilege and an honor to host such a progressive conversation. And I'm so glad that actually we both listened to each other from each side. Thank you to the speakers for respecting each other and giving each other space to talk and express yourselves. Thank you to the audience for all your comments. I saw you guys were very engaged. Thank you so much, audience. And now let's move to the usual Wednesday night on MOYA podcast, MOYA Political Series. We've got Ras Thau Thau. So please don't move from the channel. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you again next time.